Hi everyone, Chris Tuck here, West Wickham Health and Fitness and survivorsofabuse.org.uk. Hope you're all well on this fantastically hot Friday afternoon. So, I have been speaking or talking all week on my lives about the Women's Health Breaking the Taboo programme on Channel 5. And it's been on at 7 p.m. each evening. And if you haven't caught it yet, please go back and check it out. It is fascinating why also women, we do not talk about some of the issues that many of us go through throughout our lifetime because of embarrassment, because we think we're the only ones, because of shame maybe, especially in the case of childhood sexual abuse victim and survivors. And that's the angle that I'm going to bring in throughout this live with you today. Now, I think it's really important that I am doing this. You obviously can go and watch the programme, but as a women's trauma-informed health and wellness practitioner, I feel that it's beneficial coming from me as well, because I'm going to bring my lived experience into this, and hopefully this will resonate with some of you that have an additional barrier to speaking out about these issues. I have covered some of these topics from a victim and survivor's perspective in my podcast with Beverly Ann called Breaking the Cycle 2 Step Forwards, and you can catch that on YouTube in more detail. So this is going to be general, but then a bit specific, using some lived experiences. And because of my menopausal brain, which creates brain fog, which creates brain shutdown, and because of my complex PTSD that also adds to that, I've written everything down so that I don't lose track and go off course. So please bear with me, and please like, share, subscribe to all of my social media if you're interested in keeping up to date with what I have to share with you on a daily basis. All right then. So this program last night, it was talking about childbirth, pregnancy. It was talking about pelvic floor health, and it was talking about insomnia. Okay, so they're the four main subjects that we're talking about today. Now, they were saying that childbirth and pregnancy takes its toll on our bodies, and the NHS offers very limited aftercare for mums. And most new mums, the first thing they want to do after they've given birth is get back into shape, get their pre-pregnancy body back. They do not allow themselves, and I was one of them, we do not allow ourselves time for the body to heal. We want to get back, we want to lose that extra weight, we want to prove to the world and to other people around us that we are able to do that. And it really isn't the best thing to be doing, even though we want it and we want it quick. Yeah, the body has to have time to heal, and as I go through this, you'll see why. Now, most women will experience a genital tear from a vaginal birth. 45% of women will suffer from incontinence. 60% incur damage to their abdominals, which can cause back pain and posture problems. And this is caused by the overextension of the abdominal muscles as the uterus and the baby grows. New mums do not get the care or the education that they need, and many women will seek help years, even decades down the line for symptoms and conditions that they suffer from as a result of pregnancy and childbirth. My advice after watching this and knowing what I know from doing my pre and postnatal pregnancy qualification is for new mums to go and see an expert after their 6-week checkup before they do any exercise. That's my one piece of advice to you, is go and contact an expert. Now, Diastasis Recti, or Recti if you want to call it that, is a common condition after pregnancy. Now, 1 in 3 women still have issues 6 months after giving birth. And I would like to say that many more will have DR many years and even decades down the line, because we don't know about it. And if we do know about it, then we can rehab it and not have those issues down the line. Now, diastasis is where the muscles that run down from here to the pelvis, they separate. And they have to separate to allow the uterus and the baby to grow. But after birth, they should start going back together. So by the time you have your 6-week check, that separation of the abdominals should have gone back. But in some cases, it just doesn't do that. So a diastasis, is where the muscles become so stretched that they leave the belly distended, and that can result in serious back pain and affect your self-confidence. So I always thought that a diastasis was above the belly button, but you can actually get them above the belly button, below the belly button, or both. Okay, and I'm going to share some of my personal experiences in a moment. Now, these core muscles, rectus abdominis, the lower abdominal muscles, the obliques, they give us our core stability, along with the pelvic floor, along with the back muscles. It gives us that core stability. So if we have a DR, we are going to be using other muscles more so, obviously, than the muscles that have not knitted together. We've actually lost a part of our core strength, and we're going to use the other muscles to twist and turn. This can lead to poor posture, backache, shoulder ache, hip girdle pain, and even constipation. If the DR goes untreated for many years, it can result in a hernia, and this is when the internal organs can protrude through the abdominal wall, or that gap that you have. The worst thing you can do after your 6-week check, if you have a DR, is to do loads of sit-ups. We need to allow our body to heal after birth. We need to rehab the muscles back in order to prevent any problems long term. Now, I had a natural birth when I was 28, and this was followed by an emergency C-section 5 years later when I had my daughter at the age of 33. Before my pregnancies, in between my pregnancies, and after my pregnancies, I did the 6-week relax, chill out, and then after the 6-week checkup, I went back to all of my core workouts to strengthen my abs. And I also became a fitness professional when I was 33, after I had my second child, because of a mental health breakdown that I had after my son, and then because of childhood abuse, and that all came flooding back to me when I gave birth with my first son. And then I had my daughter, and in between my mental health was sliding, and I didn't really pay any attention to the physical stuff that was going on, even though I had issues. I had a rectal prolapse that I had to get sorted, and I didn't really know anything about diastasis at that time because I wasn't a health and fitness professional, And I only understood about DR about 2.5 years ago when I did my pre and postnatal qualification. And only then did it register with me that the back pain that I'd been suffering from was because of the DR that I had still. And I didn't know about any of that until 16 years after both of my births. Absolutely mental that you don't know what you don't know, but then when you do know about it, you then go, oh no, oh no, oh no. If only I'd had that information, if only I knew about all of that, then I could have prevented what was to come later. So 6 weeks after the birth of your baby, get checked out for if you've got a DR. If you have, rehab yourself before you do any other core strength work without a professional. Go and seek that professional, guys. So my DR, and I've actually got a picture that I had, I'd lost all of the weight. I was the lowest weight that I'd ever been. I was the slimmest that I'd ever been. I was so proud of what I've achieved. I had a photo shoot done for my fitness business, and there is a picture of me leaning up against the table with a clear belly. And it is as a result of that belly that people used to say to me, when are you expecting? And I used to get really, really upset because I spent a lot of time getting back my body and also doing a lot of strength work for the core, which I thought was correct, which wasn't correct, but at the time I thought was correct, strengthening my abdominals, but in fact I had a DR, and that diastasis made me look pregnant. I never used to wear dresses and skirts because I always had that pot belly. And my nutrition at the time of having this photograph done was really on point, really on point. So I shouldn't have had any inflammation around that area. So now looking back on all of that with the knowledge, the new knowledge that I had gained, I actually went and got myself checked out, and my DR was actually 6 centimeters. The gap was 6 centimeters. And it was below my navel, and no amount of core strength work was going to fix it because I had exercised it into a dome as well. So I had surgery to correct that DR, and now I can honestly 100% say I can feel my core muscles. I don't look pregnant, and personally I'm a lot happier within myself. Now, the lady on the program, Miguela, she had non-invasive treatment to repair her abdominal wall. The doctor in the program, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Dr. Eji Kimi, used a body contouring machine to fix Miguela's diastasis. Now, this machine stimulated the muscles to contract them using electromagnetic pulses, and after only 4 sessions, the muscles had edged closer together without putting any strain on the organs that repeated sit-ups would cause. Each session costs £400, and that treatment is private. The NHS do not provide it. But you could clearly see that Miguela could tense her stomach muscles after 4 sessions. She felt that her muscles had come closer together, and she had a lot less back pain. And the doctor went on to explain that when you have a diastasis, your lower back is not being supported, and you actually arch your lower back more, and you have distension in your belly, exactly what I had. And you're not able to engage those core muscles. So then your back takes over and it has a lot of pain as a result. So being able to engage your core muscles is key for better posture and to get rid of that pain. So if you are a new mum, make sure that you've got no diastasis at all, above the navel, below the navel, or both, before you go on a program of exercising. And I would honestly recommend you seek out a Pilates or physiotherapist expert in pre and postnatal care so that you get the right treatment for you before you go on to do any other kind of working out. Yeah, just make sure that you're okay to do so. Now, Miguela, she lost 8 centimetres around her waist after those 4 treatments, which was 1 per week, which equated to 2 dress sizes. So that's diastasis. The next thing that they covered in the program was pelvic floor. And they said that pelvic floor health is crucial to full recovery. 1 in 4 women suffer from a pelvic floor disorder after having a baby. If the pelvic floor muscles are not strengthened over time, the muscles can deteriorate and cause incontinence and even prolapse. And prolapse is where the organs in the pelvis slip out of place. And this can even occur decades later if you don't have the right treatment at the time. Now, the lady, Gillian, in the program, she had had 3 children in her 30s, but decades later was affected by a pelvic prolapse. Now, the pelvic floor muscles support our bladder, bowel, and uterus, so it keeps those pelvic organs in place. When the pelvic floor muscles fail, it can end up with the pelvic floor organs prolapsing outside of the body. This is where those organs slip down into the vaginal passage. Now, Gillian had a worse case of this. Her uterus had actually slipped down outside of her body and she could feel it in between her legs. And over time, she had many infections. She suffered from incontinence and it literally overtook her life. Complete discomfort. She couldn't cross her legs because of the prolapse. Her prolapse even affected how she weed. She helped herself, she'd lost weight, she'd done Pilates, she'd seen a specialist, but in her case, she had to have corrective surgery. She actually had her uterus removed, her vagina reconstructed in order to support the bowel and bladder. Yeah. So she had corrective surgery in her case because it was worst case scenario. But you can go to a specialist for your pelvic floor muscles. You can do your Kegel exercises. And I think I shared yesterday in my video more on how you could improve the pelvic floor. So go back and revisit that video or spend 3 hours and watch the Channel 5 program and see what you can learn. And if you want my take on it, then check out my video from yesterday. Another subject that they touched upon in the program was insomnia. And we said that this was a clear menopausal symptom and how it affected the life of those that took part in the program yesterday. But today they said women are 40% more likely to suffer from insomnia than men. Women between the age of 30 and 60 only get 6 hours sleep on average in a working week, and this is just not enough sleep. Insomnia is another issue driven by our hormones, and a recent survey showed that 65% of women aged 55 to 64 experience sleeplessness, showing that this is a common symptom of menopause, more common than having a hot flush. Now, the 3 ladies in today's programs had approximately 2 hours sleep per night. Ouch. No wonder they were moody, they were fatigued, they didn't have energy to do anything, and they were always tired. Yeah. So they tested 3 products in today's program. One of those was a weighted blanket, and this uses pressure therapy, which has a calming effect on the central nervous system. It encourages the body to release the hormone, the sleep hormone, melatonin, and it makes you sleep better. They tested a brain frequency device, and this emits a series of silent electromagnetic frequencies mimicking those of a brain of a good sleeper. It trains your brain to follow the same cycle to help you fall asleep and stay asleep. It was about 300 quid, whereas the weighted blanket was between 30 quid and 100 quid. And then they road tested yoga as well, using yoga exercises to help reduce stress and anxiety to help sleep. And as a Pilates instructor, I would say yoga and or Pilates can give you the same effect and the same benefit. Now, all 3 ladies using all 3 options experience better sleep and better quality of sleep, but the blanket came out on top. So, very, very interesting program on women's health, breaking the taboos. I've brought you what I learned from those 3 programs. I would love to have your comments below. I would love to hear from you about your health issues that might have been touched upon in the last 3 videos. But I just want to bring in the perspective of being a victim and survivor of child sexual abuse. Any health appointment can be triggering for us. Because we have been violated by an adult that we trusted as a child, we learn not to trust adults when it comes to our bodies. We learn that silence is the best option, because when we do speak out, we're not often believed. Silence is key to the perpetrator carrying on with their perverse crimes against children. As a teenager growing into an adult, wanting children, having sexual relationships with someone and building that trust with the person that you have sexual relationships with, that's one can of worms. Becoming pregnant and having a third person like a GP, like hospital medical staff checking you over and wanting to invade your body to check up on the child, which is absolutely normal, the baby that's growing, which is absolutely normal in pre and postnatal care. It can be very triggering for a victim and survivor that doesn't want anyone coming near them, touching them, or when you have to be in a vulnerable position to have these checkups. Again, I'm going to use that word trigger again. It can become very, very triggering. So healthcare professionals need to know that victim and survivors may be going through this emotional roller coaster and physical barrier to not wanting pre and postnatal care because of what they've been through as children, as adolescents, or even if you're a domestic violence victim and you're in a relationship that is very abusive, you might find that you will encounter some of the challenges that I've already described. So I think healthcare professionals need to know about trauma. They need to know about challenges that individuals like myself might come across throughout their pre and postnatal health care. Giving birth was another challenge altogether for me. I knew that I was going to be in a vulnerable position, i.e. on a bed with my knees up, naked, pushing out a baby. And I think the whole of my pregnancy, I just put that to one side. I tried not to think about it. And when it actually came to giving birth, look, I'm getting all tense. When it actually came to giving birth, I tried my hardest not to be in that position. But how else are you going to get a baby out of you unless it's not a C-section? I wanted a natural birth. I wanted to be able to just do everything normally, but at the time I didn't know that I was going through all of this trauma. So subconsciously, my body was tightening up. It was holding on to that baby because I didn't want to get to that end position where I was going to be in a vulnerable state. And you've got all of these medical professionals running around you, you know, midwives, and I only wanted a female midwife. And when a male midwife came in, even though he was a lovely person, I couldn't hack it. But at the time, I didn't know what was going on for me. I just knew that man, danger, and my brain was going into overdrive. And my body was tensing up, tightening up. I wasn't relaxing. I was highly stressed. The cortisol hormone was completely going through me. I was so stressed out. Anyway, moving on. I did give birth because there was only one way of dealing with this. The baby had to come out. But also, when I gave birth, no one in my prenatal care told me that when you give birth and when you're pushing down, that final sort of pushing moment, you might poo yourself. And it was absolutely normal and absolutely natural. So if I'd been told that, it would have saved me a lot of heartache, a lot of stress, and a lot of embarrassment and a lot of shame. So when I was bearing down to push the baby out, I kept saying, I feel like I want to go poo. I feel like I want to go poo. I can't do it. I can't do it. And they kept like going on at me. Just push, just push, just push. And I'm like, I can't poo in front of people. I can't poo in front of people. I just cannot do that. And I was screaming it out at these midwives. And they were like, chill. It's normal. Most women will poo themselves when they're bearing down. It is natural, normal, don't worry about it. And they said to me, if you feel like you're going to poo before you give birth, you have got to poo before you give birth, because otherwise it's not going to happen. You need to relax. So off we went. So that's just sharing. If you think this is too much information, this is what this is about. Women's health, breaking the taboos, breaking the silence. Okay, so just be aware of that if you are an expectant mum, I should say. So, yeah, after the birth of my baby, when I held him in my arms, overwhelming love. Physically, mentally, I was so proud. Cried, happy, went into the, I literally hop skipped down the corridor into the shower, and I remember dancing and jigging around under this hot shower, even though my belly was, bleh, it was still quite semi-hard, it was all wibbly, it was all jelly, I was bleeding profusively, you know, I was so happy, I was on top of the moon, absolutely 100% on top of the moon. I couldn't have been happier. I can still remember that moment vividly. Following up after the birth, again, I wouldn't say I was postnatally depressed at the time, but looking back, I was. That's when it hit me that I had this little baby in my hands. I would die for this baby, to protect this baby. I would do everything in my power to absolutely 100% care, nurture, love, and protect this baby. Yeah, I would die for this baby. I would go to prison for this baby. And then these thoughts flooded into my brain. Why did the 4 caregivers that I had in my life, my mum, my dad, my stepmum, my stepdad, why did they choose to abuse and terrorise us mentally, physically, and sexually? And I'm not going to go into that on this video today. If you want to read my story, you can. It's on Amazon. It's called Through the Eyes of a Child by Chris Tuck. You can read my story and that of my siblings who also contributed to the book. So you can read everything in there. But it really hit me. And that's when my mental health started to take a slide. And I didn't know it at the time. Didn't know it. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? So anyway, moving on. That was that period of my life. I then was also a qualified accountant. I qualified just before I got pregnant with my son, and I was trying to be a career woman, finance manager for a firm that was up and coming and wanted to launch itself on the AIM stock market, and they were trying to get me to do things that I didn't agree with, that went against my ethics, against my moral code. And I was trying to balance that career with having a toddler, with getting pregnant again. My stress levels were skyrocketing. My period stopped. I couldn't get pregnant without having a period. Naturally, couldn't do it. So I was going through lots of investigations as to why I couldn't get pregnant, even though we had been trying for 2-3 years, religiously trying, you know, charts, temperature, all of that malarkey. Not pleasant. Eventually, I had a checkup with an expert who did a laparoscopy on me, said that I had endometriosis and natural pregnancy wasn't going to happen until I had laser treatment. So that was booked in for the following Monday. I had this treatment on the Friday, this checkup on the Friday. I was going to have the operation on the Monday because at that time I had private medical, which was brilliant. So me and my hubby, we had one last, you know, go, so to speak. And on the Monday, they did a pregnancy test on me. And I went, well, there's no point in doing that. I wasn't pregnant on the Friday. I'm hardly going to be pregnant on the Monday, am I? But that pregnancy test came back positive. And the expert that I'd gone to turned around, they were absolutely gobsmacked, absolutely floored, and they said whatever he did with the laparoscopy on the Friday, it had dislodged, because I had a really sharp pain when he was looking around, that had dislodged something and enabled me to become pregnant. But unfortunately, I was literally just pregnant, and everybody at my work knew that I was going for that checkup because they knew I was trying for a child. They knew that I was having this treatment, and I was meant to be off work for a week to recover from my operation. But because I went back into work the next day and I was happy, they were like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I explained to them. So everyone knew I was a few days pregnant, you know, and you don't usually tell anyone until you're 12 weeks pregnant, do you? But they were all sworn to secrecy, and we just got on with things. So my daughter was a medical miracle, really. She really was, you know. But that pregnancy was fine. I was healthy, I was fit, I was well. But I then obviously established that the job that I was doing was not right. I wouldn't be able to cope with a toddler. Well, he wasn't what he was for, and a baby, once the baby come along. So I thought, I'm going to change careers. And that's when I looked into becoming a fitness instructor. Charlie's birth was very, very, very traumatic. It ended up, again, because of my trauma, because of the past, because I then knew what birth was going to be like, subconsciously, even though I was trying to calm myself down mentally up here, and I put plans in place to deal with all of that. Subconsciously, my body was going, nah, this ain't going to happen. It's not going to be easy. So, cut a long story short, she ended up in an emergency C-section, nearly lost her. Yeah, not pleasant, but we stopped at 2 children. And then after that birth, I really did have postnatal depression. Yeah, hit me for 6. But, you know, my coping strategy is get up, carry on, pretend nothing's happening. Even though my brain and my body's saying something else, my coping strategies is get up, carry on. So what did I do 4 months after having Charlie? I started my fitness training to become a fitness instructor. And I loved it, absolutely loved it, but I struggled. I did struggle. I was overweight. I was jumping around 4 months after having her. And, well, the rest is history, really. I then, you know, carried on being health and fitness instructor, jumping around, teaching Zumba, doing circuits, legs, bums and tums. And then it wasn't until I transitioned into becoming a Pilates instructor and then adding on more advanced courses that I started to understand what the trauma from my childhood had created within me, the damage that it done. You know, cut a long story short, I've got 2 hip replacements. I had 2 anal prolapses that needed to be fixed. I then had this many years afterwards. I then found out that I had a diastasis in my lower abdominals, which I got fixed 2 years ago. And I still have to work on my health and well-being mentally and physically on a day-to-day basis. Wow, that was a long trip down memory lane for me, and to share with you what goes on for a victim and survivor of child sexual abuse, alongside all of the normal women's health issues that you may come across in your own life, and what you may come across potentially in a client's life. As a result of all of my training, all of my research, all of my recovery, I created the Cleaner Living Therapy program, which is a psycho-educational 8-week program based on holistic recovery, looking at mindset, nutrition, fitness, stress management. There's 7 pillars to my program. Cleaner is a mnemonic to clear and concise mindset, lifestyle choices, endocrine system, anatomical alignment and posture awareness, CLEA, N, nutrition, E, exercise, and R, rest and regeneration. And I've written a book on it. I've produced an 8-week course. I started up my charity in 2016 called Survivors of Abuse, Breaking the Cycle. And I teach that program to victim and survivors. But it can be applicable to everybody and anybody that's gone through any type of trauma or suffers from depression, anxiety, eating disorders. All of that is covered in that book, in that program. Again, available on Amazon if you want to check me out, Chris Tuck. You can find my Through the Eyes of a Child book on there and my Breaking the Cycle Cleaner Living Therapy program book on there. And I also wrote a book about parenting and what you need to look out for if you don't really know what a good parent is and what you should be putting in place for a child as a parent. And again, it's not to judge anybody, but if you don't know, you don't know. Knowledge is power, and I urge you to go and seek out your own solutions to the challenges that you may be facing, to the symptoms that you may be having, and try and find a holistic route to recovery rather than pharmaceutical in the first instance. And then once you've exhausted all of that, maybe pharmaceuticals are needed. So I'm not going to say never go down that route, but once you tap into pharmaceuticals, they create another host of symptoms that you need more pharmaceuticals to deal with those symptoms. So try and do everything you can. Go and visit the different experts that can help you with a solution to your particular issue. So as you can hear, mine have been very varied, very complicated, and I'm still dealing with them on a day-to-day basis, and I'm still dealing with them with a smile and with a positive attitude, because once you've been down on the ground, on the floor, with literally nowhere else to go, no other way to go, the only way, guys, is up or out. And I chose, for me, for it to be up and onwards. All right? So please share, comment. If it's going to be a negative comment, I'll just delete you, because that's what this video is about. This is all about authentic conversations around women's health and how victims and survivors of child sexual abuse or any abuse can be impacted as they go through a normal life cycle of events. So if you want to check out the YouTube podcast with me and Beverly Ann, it's called Breaking the Cycle 2 Step Forwards. We're open, we're honest. We try and keep to 30 to 45 minutes in our conversations. And please, I would love to hear from you. Thank you, everyone. Go and enjoy the sunshine, because I know that's what I'm now going to do. And have a blessed day. Have a blessed week. Have a blessed life, everyone. Please follow me and share. Thank you. Bye.